Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Thank you for staying with us. It's time now for the week that was. Let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines around the globe this week. Starting here in Nigeria, the End Bad Governance protests began across the country on Wednesday as planned, with protesters defying government warnings and police brutality to demand economic reforms and improved governance. Despite the use of tear gas and force by security operatives, protesters have continued to gather in major cities across the country, calling for the restoration of petrol subsidies, forex regime reforms, and immediate reforms of the electoral umpire, INEC, and the anti-graft agency, EFCC. The government's response to the protest has been widely condemned by civil society organizations, with 36 groups signing an open letter calling for an end to internet disruptions and respect for citizens' rights. Reports indicate that several people have been injured and some killed in clashes between protesters and security forces. A policeman was also murdered and police stations were burnt in certain areas. Well, the last time we were here, we were gearing up to this protest set to kick off on August 1st. And of course, that kicked off this week. First off, I have to say, Arise News really had a commendable coverage of it from the north to the south, to the east, just giving the Nigerian citizens up to date as to what was happening here. But what we then eventually saw in the north was that chaos, erupting in states like, the FCT, Abuja, Borno State, Niger, in Kano, of course, and all other northern states. And when you compare and contrast, it seems as if a lot of people are saying that, what we saw certain governors, for example, Governor Sanwo-Olu coming out to address Lagosians. We saw the same thing with Governor Obaseki in Edo State, and even in Rivers State with Fubara addressing citizens, is that maybe that body language in itself has kind of helped to quell, the rage or the fire that, that's beneath the wings of, these protesters, to actually see that their government officials are actually listening to them and are trying to, do something. But then on the other hand, when you think about the protesters that were attacked, the protesters that lost their lives, and even the policeman as well that was killed, that is never what, protesters, peaceful protests, those kind of results that we want from that. So in this kind of situation, we've seen in the north where there has been a curfew that has been placed. We've also seen, the body language of, the FCT Minister Wike, who has gone to court to get an order to confine, citizens or rather residents of Abuja to a certain part of the state because of that chaos that has erupted. The truth is nobody, at least myself, I speak for myself when I say that nobody wants violence. Peaceful protests are the rights nobody wants violence. And, and Nigerians demand a better life. We have food insecurity, we have insecurity in itself, we have inflation. There's so much going on. So at this point, it's really about reiterating the Nigerian government to start to not just flurry around and start to look for ways that are kind of, it seems, cutting corners or what have you, but actually listening. There was a press conference that was held, I believe, on Wednesday, where we saw Senator George Akume, Secretary to the Government of the Federation of Nigeria, as well as other ministers. Wale Edun was there as well, talking about all the steps that this administration has taken, proving to the Nigerian people that the president is listening. But then again, they said they're going to do this for 10 days, and we're going to see how that is going to play out.
Well, you're very correct, Shaitan. On paper, it is day 3 of the protest, End Bad Governance. But I think it is important to highlight that it looks to me, and I believe to many people, that normalcy is returning to the country, particularly in a number of the states in the north, where things turn awry, especially on Thursday, and a good chunk of yesterday in Kano, in Gombe, in Yobe, parts of Abuja and Borno. Many of the states, like you mentioned, had to declare a 24-hour curfew to restrict movement. I think that what happened in those states were very bad, and it spoke to the reason why the government was very emphatic about the need to, as much as possible, to try and avert this protest because of the likelihood that it might be hijacked by hoodlums. And we saw what happened in Kano. I thought that was condemnable. I hope that the governor, who, by the way, as you recall, Shaitan Adesua, had said that he will even join the protest, himself, and that he supported it. So I hope that there will be a way to ensure that the governor works with the authorities. I saw that the CDS, the defense chief, was on air live yesterday at a press conference to say that if these things persist, the military or the army, particularly, will have no choice but to step in. I'm not so sure if that was directly his call. I would have expected the Inspector General of Police to continue in the manner that it was doing, engaging with the people, sending his people. You mentioned what Governor Sanwo-Olu did. Brilliant. Speaking to the hearts of the people, why Lagos shouldn't be destroyed. If many of the governors had taken that approach, I saw that Obaseki, also did something similar in Edo State.
Yes,
Maybe
and some governors even, like Governor Eno, came out before to hold meetings with members of his community and youth leaders within the community. Again, the most important thing, I think, is that government needs to actively engage their citizens. I did say this earlier about the lack of the president speaking directly to Nigerians. Now I believe Peter Obi or some people have come out and said that the president should speak directly to Nigerians. I think it is necessary to show care, but as we said about these protests,
directly to Nigerians, maybe.
Again, I know, but I think it's not just about posturing, giving a
live broadcast.
Yes.
Like Buhari did during NSAS.
Yes,
3 or 4 days into NSAS.
Yes, but I know what you're saying, that it might just be posturing. But if people are saying that they feel that government is not paying attention to the plight of Nigerians, a report came out by MSF recently that over 4 million children in the north are starving, not even at the risk of starvation, are starving. That in the next coming years, we have about 19 to 16 million Nigerians who are going to have stunted growth due to malnutrition. So this is a serious crisis. When people talk about end bad governance, it's not just about, oh, I'm hungry today. It's that it's going to have long-term effects. So I think that it's something that needs to be tackled. And as you said, there are 3 northern states, Yobe, Maiduguri, and Kano, which had to call curfews, which we saw, Dr. But also, if you look at the socio-economic indices in Yobe State, you would understand why it erupted how it did, because the starvation numbers, the numbers of children and people who are starving in these states is significantly higher than, for example, in Lagos. And so therefore, you will not expect that those situations will be the same. And we have people who have died, including one police officer has been reported, one police officer has sadly died, over 20 people. So I mean, we'll see. I
totally agree with you. The point about why what necessitated the protest should not be lost on government, and if at some point the president, would need to come out and also speak, because the Nigerians hired him to be the number 1 citizen and do the job, and I think that at some point he should also come up and say a word or two to Nigerians to reassure them. All right, we move on. Tributes have been pouring in following the death of the legendary Nigerian singer, politician, and actress Onyeka Onwenu. Onwenu, who slumped after an impressive performance at a private event, was then rushed to a hospital in Lagos, where she passed on. She died at the age of 72. Onwenu was born in 1952 in Nobosi, Anambra State, Nigeria. She began her music career in the 1980s and released her debut album, For the Love of You, in 1981. She has since released numerous albums and singles, including the hit song, One Love. Onwenu has also acted in several Nollywood films and has won numerous awards for her contributions to music and film. She has been recognized as one of the pioneers of the Nigerian contemporary music. In addition to her entertainment career, she has also been involved in politics. She was appointed as the chairperson of the Imo State Council for Arts and Culture in 2013, and later became the Director General of the National Center for Women Development in 2016. Onwenu has been recognized for her contributions to Nigerian society, including being awarded the National Honors of Member of the Order of the Federal Republic in 2011. The legendary Onyeka Onwenu there. And Shaitan, I like the fact that you were singing along in the studio, because for somebody like Onyeka Onwenu, it's about celebration. 72 may not be the oldest person, but then, she was not also the youngest person, to pass on to accessory. And I think that it is celebration, that matters, which is why the condolence messages, particularly from the president, from many people, have saluted, everything that she stood for. She practically redefined contemporary Nigerian music, particularly for women folk who were limited in number at a certain time. I think that the song that the producers chose there, made a lot of sense. I'll be missing you, but we'll be missing her. I haven't passed on to accessory. I mean, what can we not say, about Onyeka Onwenu? Our politics, our art, our doggedness. If you recall parts of our story, after graduating, in the US, and then she needed to a kind of internship with the United Nations. And the job that the internship that she applied for required that she spoke, that she was bilingual. And she said, put her application in that I'm bilingual. When she got to the interview, they said, okay, so you speak English. What other language do you speak? And she said, I speak Igbo. And then they said, well, we don't know about that. We were expecting French or Spanish or, something. And she said more than 40 million people globally, spoke Igbo. And that, this back and forth, eventually they accepted, her. That's the spirit of doggedness that Onyeka represented all through, her life. Her book, too, My Father's Daughter, which detailed, her identity, her ancestry, her Igbo-ness, was also something good. Not to talk about the, if you remember, the documentary, I believe in 1984 or something, Nigeria, the Squandering of Riches. Look at it today. How many years after? 40 years after, we're still discussing the same thing in Nigeria, so much so that people had to go out. And many of them, 17 of them, as at the last count, dead, because we are still discussing how Nigeria should be governed better. We will miss Onyeka Onwenu. The elegant stallion, by the way, she used to be known as, in the funny way, elegant stallion.
Definitely an icon and a legend who inspired multiple generations with her music, with her acting, and her, multifaceted, philanthropical efforts and humanitarian efforts. You're talking about My Father's Daughter, the launch of that book. I was actually there, and I got a chance to meet her. I have to say, she's one of the sweetest, strongest, most beautiful, lovely woman through and through. And I remember reading, there was an interview that she did back in 2011 where she said, when I pass on, I just want to be celebrated, bury me quickly, crack a few jokes, here and there. Yeah. I don't want anything too major. I've lived a
small lunch or dinner.
Exactly.
Be happy.
I've lived a great life. I just want to be remembered for everything that I've done. And we remember you, Onyeka. Yeah. We love you. You've inspired. I mean, even this young girl sitting here. The biggest story that stands out for me was when she was trying to get her royalties for that song. Remember that Iyo Go for NTA? And I remember, like you speak of her doggedness. Just how she said, no,
when
I'm not letting this one go. Yes, and she really inspired me in so many ways that I can't even mention on air. Continue to rest in peace, Onyeka Onwenu. Of course, we love you.
The late great. I honestly think it's a life well lived when you contribute not only to your country but to the world. Yeah. And she gave so much of herself to us as a nation with her art, with her doggedness, as we've said this morning. It's such a beautiful legacy. It's such an inspiration to women all over the world, and it also shows the value in following your heart, following your passion, and sharing your art and your soul kind of with the world, because she's left an indelible mark on Nigeria, our culture, our history. And I pray she rests in peace, and I pray God comforts her family at this difficult time.
Amen.
Now, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is insisting that Nigeria's woeful food security index will soon be a thing of the past. The Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Aliyu Abdullahi, gave this assurance in a meeting. Abdullahi hints that the federal government is working to improve food systems in Nigeria to make quality food available, accessible, and affordable for the Nigerian people.
You cannot guarantee Nigeria food security with rain-fed agriculture alone. So we are aware of this. And as a beginning, the last dry season, 2023-2024, we began planting wheat. If you are privileged to have seen the manifesto of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the agricultural sector, he said, plant the right seed, feed an entire nation. And you agree with me that planting the right seed is the key to ensuring the productivity of the farmer.
There's now a great deal of consensus that our food system and how it works underpins our potential opportunity to access both physically and economically healthy diets and nutrition. The food system is a complex interplay of many systems. Making it work for nutrition requires capacity, it requires leadership, it requires multi-sectoral alignment, it requires many things. There are no silver bullets, but we're beginning to see how good practice can be transformational and be transformational quite quickly.
Well, it's very important that we know that this, I hope it's not just empty words coming out of our ministers, because 1 in 3 children, as I've been stressing today, 1 in 3 children in Nigeria is experiencing severe child food poverty. Nigeria actually has the largest population of children who are going through malnutrition in the world. It is actually, I saw a statement coming out of the MSF earlier in July, and he said a child that dies from malnutrition today is a tragedy. A child dying from malnutrition tomorrow is preventable. And I think that's something that our government, our ministers, our governors need to kind of drill into their heads, because again, we've seen rice distribution, food truck distribution, and we have not seen any sustained proactive action in terms of actually improving the crisis, the food security crisis. And also the issue that we have is that it's not solely about planting, and it's not solely about technology, it's not solely about the inputs, it's also a security issue. Because if we keep having insecurity in the middle belt, which is our food basket, as we often say, if we keep having insecurity in that region, then our food situation is not actually going to properly improve. We have seen certain things put in place recently with the reduction of food being imported, so with the reduction of tariffs for food coming in to make food more affordable for the average Nigerian, and I think that's a very positive step in the right direction. Yeah. However, we are actually in a crisis. It is a crisis if we have thousands of people dying from hunger in a country with as much wealth as Nigeria.
So I agree with you, Adesua. It's good to give assurance, at times like this. But where we are, I doubt if a promissory note is sufficient, to douse the tension and to reassure the people. What would the minister have said if he was not speaking at the Global Alliance for Food Security, for example? And then now that you were there and you spoke, speaking extempo, I would have, expected data, more data, more, information that will give a total overview of what is
inspire
ministry.
More confidence.
Absolutely. Where are we? How are you working with states? Benue is supposed to be the food basket of the nation. Where were we as of last year? Where are we now? Where are we headed? We saw what happened under Buhari, which some states, I believe, like Ogun also replicated the rice pyramid. How come they suddenly disappeared? Okay, so what are we doing now? With the rice pyramid, what is the volume of importation of rice that we have had to return to Thailand and to some other cities? Those are the kind of things that we want to hear from a minister who says he's superintending over agricultural department or sector or ministry. They will have to do a lot more better, which is why when people say the so-called 1-year review of the performance of the ministers, there are certain names that won't even feature in the top 10. I doubt if many Nigerians will have had anything from the gentleman minister, before now. So every opportunity that you get to sell yourself and sell your government, sell your ministry, make good use of it. Not just, sounding like this is another opportunity, to hold the microphone. Do far better. I think that's what a lot of people are asking people to do, particularly the Ministry of Agriculture.
Definitely. We're even getting, I guess, more of action from the First Lady herself. I mean, she showed us her farm.
Senator Remi Tinubu.
Exactly. And then the first produce that's
giving hope, saying that little things, can at least assist, in the meantime. The bigger picture is what the minister, who's directly in charge, should be telling people. Where are we on rice? Where are we on food security? Where are we on storage? Where are we on the movement, of stuff from the north to the south? Where is the data? Graphic analysis of the things that can inspire hope. During the protesting, at least the information arm of the president came out with a graphic data to say this is where, you may not agree in totality with everything, but then they are saying that this is where we are, this is what we did, coming off what Mr. Wale Edo did the other time. That at least shows that some people are working.
I really appreciate that you're stressing the need for data because there is a need for data in how we are addressed. I need to see the numbers. I need to see the plan. I need to see that at every step of the food chain, something is being done. What I do not need is a truck of rice. I do not.
You don't need a 40,000 bag.
I do not need
your backyard,
a farm in my backyard. That's no. Can I feed? No, because I honestly think that sometimes, it feels good, it looks good, but if we're not talking about things that are going to have a tangible effect on the lives of every Nigerian or the lowest rung of society, then you're not doing anything.
Yeah, but that connects with what she's trying to say. This sort of Operation Feed the Nation kind of a thing, green revolution, kind of advocacy. Something meaningful should come from the Ministry of Agriculture. Now that they are taking livestock out of it, what else would the minister be talking about?
Well, let's move on to the next story. Top Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh has been killed in an Israeli attack in the Iranian capital. According to Iranian media, Haniyeh was staying at a building for war veterans in Tehran. When the attack occurred, he was in Tehran to take part in the inauguration ceremony of the new Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, who was sworn in on Tuesday. Some reports suggest he was killed in an airstrike. He was 62 and widely considered Hamas's overall leader. Israel has not commented, but it has promised to destroy Hamas following the 7th of October attack on southern Israel, which killed 1,200 people.
Haniyeh, normally who's based in Qatar, was the face of the Hamas international diplomacy as the war set off by the Hamas-led attack on Israel 7th. And I think the biggest thing with this story happening was just the fear of retaliation, because there's just been a lot of back and forth, and that fear, even though Netanyahu.
Fear of retaliation?
Yes.
From who?
Iran.
From Iran.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because when we look at, of course, Netanyahu has not made a, no mention. He has not. It's been very hush hush. But there has just been that train of thoughts that indeed they are the ones behind it. So honestly, at this point, while say Israel might have delivered crushing blows to Iran proxies of late, including Hamas and Hezbollah, one would expect them to respond forcefully. So it's one of those things where we just keep
we have seen the Hezbollah, we have seen rockets going from Lebanon into Israel in the past week in terms of retaliation. Some people are saying that did Netanyahu feel comfortable and confident enough to do this post his trip to the United States, post the rounding applause he received in Congress? Because you have to think that this is an escalation of sorts. Some people say it's an airstrike, but more I've seen it being reported also as a bomb. I've actually seen it being reported that it's possible that the bomb was planted for 2 months before.
He's been there for weeks.
For weeks before it went off.
He was a marked man.
He was a marked man,
like a few other, Hamas's leaders. But you're very correct. Will this, and I think the American government also shared this, same sentiment. Will this be the right step to take at this point? in
Do you want the hostages back?
Do you get, I mean...
in the middle of
It's a very
negotiations.
volatile, situation out there. And I just hope that, somehow, some senses will find its way into the heads of those who are causing trouble in that region. It doesn't look like it will happen anytime soon, but let's hope that for the sake of lives that have been lost, things better will happen.
It seems that that's a wrap on the week that was, but as we make progress, let's take a minute or two to bring you up to date with a few stories making rounds. And we'll start with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, who is now the Democratic nominee for this year's presidential election, having secured enough delegates via the virtual roll nomination progress. Speaking on telephone, Harris said that she was honored to be the nominee of the party. The virtual roll call is expected to end on Monday. This is ahead of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago later this month. Harris is the first Black and South Asian woman to become the White House standard bearer for a major U.S. political party.
All right. The Kano state government has announced a temporary relaxation of the curfew imposed across the state. Effective immediately, the curfew will be lifted for a 5-hour window Friday from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. The adjustment aims to accommodate Muslim worshippers so they can observe their Friday prayers without disruption. The decision was communicated by Haruna Dederi, the Commissioner for Justice and State Attorney General. Dederi emphasized that this measure was part of the government's ongoing efforts to balance security concerns with religious practices.
Meanwhile, France's Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin says petty crime decreased significantly during the first week of the Olympic Games in Paris, with a 24% reduction in theft with violence and a 10% drop in auto theft. The decrease is attributed to the heightened police and gendarme presence in public areas. Darmanin also reported no known organized threats from foreign groups, though police are actively and apprehending suspicious individuals. Special forces are providing meticulous protection for all delegations, including those from Arab nations and Israel.